The jurors have reached a verdict in the Feeding Our Future trial for Aimee Bock and Salim Saeed. So we wanted to bring you this as soon as possible. Rob Olson is in the courtroom right now as the verdict is being read, and he will join us here in just a moment as he steps out of the courtroom. But I can tell you that we do have the information from Rob, and it looks as though Aimee Bock had 7 counts and Salim Saeed 21 counts. And I can kind of go through here in real time as we're waiting for Rob to get in place the different verdicts on the different counts. So conspiracy to commit wire fraud was one for Aimee Bock. Count 1, guilty. And we do have, let's see, wire fraud as well for Aimee Bock. Count 2, guilty. And there's a count 4 for wire fraud, which is also guilty. And it looks as though count 5 as well, guilty, and then count 12, guilty. And I know the counts don't mean much to you, as we'll get to filling in the blanks here for you momentarily here. But we do have multiple guilty verdicts here in for Aimee Bock, and then also for Salim Saeed. So Aimee Bock, if you'll remember, was the executive director of Feeding Our Future. Salim Saeed was the co-owner of the Safari restaurant just off of Lake Street in Minneapolis, one of these supposed meal sites where taxpayer-funded money was going to supposedly during the pandemic feed children who needed meals. And so this verdict coming in to Minneapolis federal court now, again, Bock facing these counts of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit federal programs bribery, and federal programs bribery. And it looks as though, as I'm looking through my notes in real time here, that Rob is showing us that I'm showing many of these counts as guilty, but I just want to be very careful as I'm reading through these in real time, because there are some counts that are not listed here. That I want to just make sure I'm reading this correctly. So as I'm doing that, let me see here. Yeah, so both Bock and Saeed have taken the stand. We know that the jury started their deliberations this morning. So this has been a trial. The Aimee Bock portion of this has been going on for about 5.5 weeks or so. They did take a week off. So about 19 hours of testimony, and the prosecution in her case brought many people to testify. It sort of went slowly, took a lot of time, and then when Salim Saeed took the stand, when his case was front and center, that is when it really sped up. And within a day or so, we were at closing arguments, and now, as you see, we have these verdicts. So Rob Olson getting in place here, and while he's doing that, again, I want to welcome everybody in who's following us on streaming online, and we are also breaking into your programming here during the afternoon. We'll send you right back to that shortly here, but we did want to bring you this breaking news that a jury has returned the verdicts in the trial of Aimee Bock and Salim Saeed. So the backstory here, just really quickly to set this up, prosecutors had said that Aimee Bock was really the ringleader in this massive fraud scheme that had built $250 million from the federal child nutrition program during the pandemic. And as part of this scheme, which there have been many trials that have led up to this, this was sort of the big one, the main trial with Aimee Bock involved because she was the founder. But Feeding Our Future did enlist food vendors and restaurants in the Twin Cities metro area that claimed to serve thousands of meals to children during the pandemic. In fact, a number of 6,000 meals was brought up, which FBI investigators quickly said while they were on the stand would be, just by common sense, not possible. Authorities saying that the vendors either lied or inflated the numbers of meals. So the fraud was exposed back in 2023, and since then, it's been a long journey of many different trials. In fact, dozens of people have been involved in this, and dozens of them have pleaded guilty already. At the trial, both Aimee Bock and Salim Saeed had denied any wrongdoing in the fraud case. In fact, Aimee Bock, who took the stand, many were wondering if she would take the stand, and her defense attorney said it is up to her. He did not advise her to do it, but she ended up taking the stand, and she denied any wrongdoing. She argued that she was lied to by vendors. The prosecution also presented witnesses, you may remember, who said that they were named on the nonprofit's board, but they had nothing to do with this organization. One was a bartender at a bar where Aimee Bock had been one time, and they had a discussion, and then he ended up on the website as a board member. And also, Bock had claimed that she had communicated with members, but admitted no formal meetings were held. She says, she was CC'd on a bunch of emails, and she didn't believe that because she was included in on correspondence that these charges should have been brought against her. So she did take the stand in her own defense. There was a lot of video, a lot of evidence in this trial. So as we were talking about how long this might take, of course, you never know in a jury trial how long this might take, but we do know, based on Rob's reporting over the course of the last 5-6 weeks, that there has been just an onslaught of evidence, videos, so many different meal sites, different people who were involved. And at one point, Rob was telling us, sort of midpoint in this trial, it would be very, very difficult for these jurors just to simply keep all the logistics straight in their head, the people, the places, the allegations, the different counts. There were so many here. So again, we're continuing to wait for our Rob Olson, who is in the courtroom as the verdicts were being read, and will join us here momentarily. You've seen, if you've been following this case, that cameras have not been allowed in the courtroom, so we've been relying on sketches to see what's been happening. I'm just going to look through Rob's notes here in real time. The jury bringing back these guilty verdicts for Aimee Bock and Salim Saeed, multiple guilty verdicts, then polling the jury. In other words, asking, are these your true and correct verdicts? He says, I'm just reading his notes again in real time, Aimee Bock just looking down at the table, Salim Saeed looking at the jury. And the judge, this is a quote from Rob, that the judge said, you have done your very difficult work well. You have contributed greatly to democracy. Another quote, enormous volume of evidence and very difficult case makes your work extraordinary, and you go with the court's thanks. Rob also saying that a sentencing date has not been set yet, and they are discussing right now release versus detention for these two. So again, this is a case that spans now a couple of years, and a lot to keep track of in the comings and goings. And even in this particular case against Aimee Bock and Salim Saeed, now that they have been found guilty, we had some hiccups where we had, at one point just a couple of weeks ago during this trial, someone who was held and then questioned because there was an allegation of witness tampering in this case as well. Someone who was trying to perhaps convince a jury member or someone who, it wasn't a jury member, excuse me, trying to convince one of the people who was going to be testifying to testify a certain way. So we've seen that in this case. We've seen that in one of the other cases involving Feeding Our Future as well, where there was some money involved in trying to bribe one of the jurors in that case as well. So again, a lot to try to digest in this Feeding Our Future fraud case that has spanned now a couple of years and nearly $250 million.